Hi everyone, this is Adam Bennett, President of AFL England, and this is the first in a growing series of videos which will take you through ideas, suggestions, a lot of stuff to do with Australian rules football, how you can get more out of it or sort of do stuff around it. I've been playing sport since 2004. It's been absolutely fantastic, one of the best sort of experiences I've had through my life. And if, like me, you've picked up some great memories along the way, you really want to do something to remember them by, one of the ways you can really effectively do this is by mounting jerseys. Now the one I've got here is the 2010 European Championships Team Europe. It was a really special moment for me, getting the recognition of my peers while playing for the Great Britain team. And I'm going to take you through how you can fairly quickly, easily and importantly quite cheaply as well, mount these jerseys very effectively for great display.
Aside from the jersey and the frame, the tools you need for the project are very few. I'm going to be using a hand drill on the left here with a 3mm drill bit to go through the backboard. You can just bore a hole through with a sharp object like a pen knife or a screwdriver, but what a drill bit will do will actually give you a good round regular hole so it won't cause any additional fraying on the thread. Next, of course, is the thread. Colour really doesn't matter unless you've got something which will severely clash with the actual jersey you're going to be mounting. Need a needle stuck in the little tomato here, and also just something to cut the thread with once you're finished.
The shirt I'm going to be mounting today is the 2005 GB Bulldogs International Cup jersey. My first internationals, very proud moment for me and one I've been looking forward to displaying properly for a while. The only really significant cost in the project is that of the frame. As you can see, these need to be pretty large so you can get a decent border around the actual shirt when it's displayed. So you need to pay careful attention to the size of your shirt when it's laid out flat and order one accordingly. These can be reasonably expensive, but if you shop around on the internet you can find websites which will allow you to customise the size of your frame, whether you want a light wood or a dark wood, thin or thick border, and it's worth having a shop around to see what you can find. I use a website called www.eframe.co.uk for the 3 jerseys I've mounted so far, and they've always been very good, provided a very good product which has proved to be good and long lasting.
With a lot of frames now, what you'll find are they use these small black metal tabs to fasten and hold the backboard in once you've actually mounted the item. Although they're not sharp, these things are fairly fine, so you need to be very careful when you're actually manipulating these. So what I use is a Leatherman or pocket knife or other sort of a sharp implement, and what you can do is just insert the blade underneath, fold it up as far as you need to. That then allows you to use your hand to fold it up the rest of the way to actually remove the item, remove the backboard. What you can then do is when you're finished and fully mounted, you can literally just very carefully fold it down, make sure it's nice and tight down again, and that will maintain a good solid seal around the shirt.
To begin work on mounting the shirt, first of all you need to take the backboard off. And you need a work area which will allow you to get to both sides of the board at once. So ideally you want to use something like this, just your standard living room table I've got here. What I'm going to do is actually work with the board like so. So I've got access to underside, overside at both at once. Very important when you're actually doing this procedure. What we're actually going to be doing is stitching through the lining of the shirt, through the board, and then drilling 2 holes on either side so we can stitch down through one, up through the other, and maintain a loop which will actually hold the shirt onto the board. I've covered this backing board with a decent sort of grain white paper, so it will sort of provide a nice backing to the shirt, a lot of contrast. You probably won't be able to see, but I've actually already pre-marked this with the holes which I need to drill through to actually give myself a decent area to stitch through. So what we then have to do is make sure the shirt is laid out good and flat, dead centre. Make sure that the holes we've marked really sort of line up with these lining bits. We don't want to go through this sort of the more central sort of the actual surface of the jersey because it's not as heavy. These lining bits are heavy duty, they're designed to sort of stand up to all we can throw at them during the game, so they're good positions to actually do the stitching through. So what I can do now is literally go through these holes. Cool. Once we've drilled the guide holes in the backboard, what we then need to do is make sure we line up correctly with the area we want to be stitching through on the jersey. So essentially what we're doing is we're lining up this bottom part of the back part of the arm reinforcement around the edges, and just making sure that lines up correctly just over those holes, so we can stitch through into a strong part of the shirt to hold it in place on the board. Once you've finally managed to thread your needle, with fingers like mine is actually the most difficult part of the damn thing, give yourself plenty of leeway to make sure the thread doesn't get unthreaded from the needle. Then what we're going to do is provide an anchor for the thread. So we're going to feed it through first hole, make sure you don't stab yourself on the other side, and then feed it back up through the other one, like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tie it off here, and what that will do is give yourself just a solid place to actually start stitching from. As you can see, I've tied this off now. I did it off camera because it usually takes me a while, but we just got a good sort of solid end to the thread there. What we're going to do now is actually start stitching through. So we get the shirt back in place, making sure again it stays over the holes. The first one, just going to feed through into the thread, into the jersey reinforcement there. And this next one, feed back, just make sure you get about the same sort of distance from your initial stitch point as the holes are apart. Get that fed through so you've got sort of that loop coming through. Feed down through the hole there, take it back, and then what we're looking to do is really sort of tighten it up there so you can see how that's actually holding the jersey onto the backboard there. Then it's just a case of repeating this, coming back up through the original hole, making sure we go through that reinforced section of the jersey every time, getting that good and tight, and using your stitch entry point in that second one to actually locate, we know it's in there somewhere, there we go, to locate our second hole so we can take the needle back around like so, keeping that nice and tight so we get a good solid fix for this jersey on the backboard. I've repeated that about 8-9 times there, so you can probably make out sort of just that dark thread against the red background there. Doing it that often just to make sure we get sort of a really good sort of solid lock there. You won't be able to see the thread once you've actually mounted it, because the front part will be actually pressing down against it from the sort of the front part of the frame anyway. So what we've got to do now is just tie it off to make sure it stays in place. I've sewed up both shoulders now, so what we need to do is tie it off at the back to make sure the stitching doesn't loosen over time and then come undone and your shirt collapse in the frame. So what we're going to do is, we've got a decent length of thread here which is very useful now, so we're just going to thread that needle underneath the stitching we've done there, and then once we can get hold of the damn thing, feed it back through that loop of thread, pull it tight, and we're just going to rinse and repeat that 4 or 5 times, and that will give us a nice tight knot to maintain sort of the solidity of the thread there. Just do it 3, 4, 5 times and you will be absolutely sorted. So once more, back through the loop, and there we have a really good strong connection which isn't going to get loosened. Just chop it off and you're pretty much done there. So we're done with the stitching now. As you can see, the shirt is firmly fixed in place, both those shoulder areas. From the ones I've done so far, that's all you really need to do. You could, if you wanted to, also stitch at these areas to keep the shirt nicely stretched, maybe in the bottom corners as well, just to make sure that it's as absolutely flat as possible. But gravity will generally make sure it stays up once you've actually got it mounted and hung up. What we're going to do then is replace all the components of the frame and actually get the frame itself in place. So we've got a little border here which actually comes supplied with it. Let's make sure that's nicely squared up. Probably one of the most complex bits is actually getting the frame with the plastic, or well, I hope it's plastic, insert actually back over the main border, as it's a very tight fit. So what we need to do, very carefully, make sure that the black metal tags so fitting behind it at the bottom there. I'm just going to gently lay it down on top. It won't snap in exactly first time, but then what it is there's just a very careful process of manoeuvring all these little black metal tags actually into place around the edge. Make sure you don't sort of fold them in sort of in front of the glass so they're pushed up here. You want them behind the glass, behind the wooden back bit, so they're actually holding in place as they're intended to. So I'm going to go around, do all those now. This will probably take me 5 minutes or so I'll come back and show you the finished product. So there we have our finished product. As you can see, it's lying nice and flat. That's the benefit of actually putting the frame and glass down on top of it, rather than having the frame and glass on the front and then trying to lay the shirt in the backboard, because unless you've stitched at multiple points around the outside, the shirt of course naturally sort of folds down or hangs down when you're trying to lay it flat, and it becomes really difficult to get it sort of uncreased. Slightly off centre here, bit high, bit far to this side, but I will enjoy looking at this. I'll go back and redo that to get it sort of dead centre, but hopefully that gives you the idea of what you can achieve. This has probably taken me, I don't know, between 30 and 35 minutes to get done, so not a huge time consuming. Total cost, I think I spent about £20 on the frame, a couple of quid on the good quality paper to form the backing, and then whatever the experience was to get you the jersey you want to frame. But this is something I'll go and hang up in my hall now, and be really proud about whenever I walk up the stairs and see it hanging there. Some good memories to be reminded of. When mounting your shirts, I recommend you use quite a sturdy fixture. What I've got here is a brass hook with two small nail inlets in the top and left hand corners. These go into the wall sort of a slight downward angle, so they're very good for then hanging what is going to be a reasonably sort of weighty item off it. So there we have our final mounted product. I think it looks good. I'll enjoy seeing it on the wall, remembering the matches I had in it. So I hope this has been useful, and I hope that it will help you to get your memories mounted up around the place. As I said, this will be hopefully the first in a series of videos about Aussie rules, so check back here to the AFL England YouTube channel whenever you get the chance to see what we've got up next.